Kia has shifted into top gear for the rollout of its electric vehicles, and now there are 5 battery-powered models on sale in Australia. But this, the Kia EV5, it says is its most important to date. It packs a pretty reasonable performance and practicality punch, and it's priced to sell. So what I want to find out is exactly why Kia says this car is the most significant EV it's put on sale to date.
The main reason Kia is putting such pressure on the EV5 to succeed is it's the first model in the South Korean brand's portfolio that goes into battle against the world's favourite EV, the Tesla Model Y. But it's not turning up unarmed. It has a big battery, lots of performance, an efficient drivetrain, and the after-sales suite that Kia has become known for.
The Kia EV5 range kicks off with the Air, the entry-level version. That'll cost you about $56,000, but you can have a slightly longer range version with a bigger battery, or there's the middle of the range version, the Earth, from about $69,000. But what we have here is the top of the range GT line, and that gets the longest range battery, all-wheel drive, lots of equipment, and a price of about $76,000. The only option you can throw at it is premium paint. This one has a lovely frost blue colour, and that will cost you a very reasonable $775.
The EV5 gets the 7-year warranty that has been a Kia standard for many years. Cap price servicing costs are relatively cheap, costing $2,431 over 7 years.
You are definitely not going to mistake this car for anything else on the road, especially at night, because the EV5 has all LED exterior lighting, and at the front end it has this super cool LED signature, which at night just looks super cool. It has 20-inch wheels, which are large, but on this car it seems proportionally very, very nice. And they're also in this very nice, almost Tron-esque design, futuristic but also contemporary, and that applies for generally all of the styling on the exterior. I've got gloss black bits everywhere, including these plastic wheel arches, which say enough SUV but also sophisticated to not be an SUV. And I think the general styling deserves a note, because Kia's EVs have a really distinct design signature, so they all kind of look alike and related, but no two look the same, if that makes sense. I think that's important. Under the bonnet of the Kia EV5 you'll find nothing or something, depending on how you look at it. There's a really neat little storage area which adds to the reasonable boot at the back, but underneath that there is the powertrain. This, as it's the GT line, gets a dual motor powertrain, but the front motor contributes most of the power. Working with the rear motor, it produces a total of 230 kilowatts and 480 Newton meters, which is reasonable. Enough performance to get this thing from 0 to 100 in 6.3 seconds. That's pretty quick. However, you don't get something for nothing. Energy efficiency is not great. Kia says this car will use 21 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers.
The EV5 GT line has an 88 kWh battery and an 800 volt electrical system, so although it has a big battery, it can be charged quickly, 10 to 80% in just 27 minutes with a high power public charger, says Kia.
As this is the top of the range EV5, the GT line, you might expect there to be quite a lot of equipment and comfort and toys in here, and I'm happy to say there is. Where to start? There's so much stuff. We'll get into all the bits and pieces and the toys in a while, but what I want to start with is a basic note on ergonomics, because the seating position is a little strange, and it's not just me that thinks this. I thought that these seats initially felt that they're developed and designed for quite small people, but then two smaller people jumped in and said exactly the same thing. They kind of feel like you're sitting very high on top of them, and then they sort of fold you in two, and then the steering wheel is in a funny position in relation to that, and it's all true, and it's not just related to your overall size. So I don't know who this car was designed for, but it does feel a little bit peculiar. It's definitely something you can get used to, but as I always say, if there's something you need to get used to in a car, it could have been done better in the first place, and I think the seating position and ergonomics of this is one of them. But it doesn't detract from the general comfort too much, because there is so much in here to like. I've got heated and ventilated front seats and a heated steering wheel. I've got electric adjustment, which you certainly need because I'm trying to get myself into a good position. I've got heaps of technology, but the whole general ambience is quite subtle. It's actually, they haven't gone too far into the sort of radical and outrageous design, and I like that. I love that you've got this two-tone leather interior, and it is leather in most places, I think. Same applied to the steering wheel. It looks great and is a comfortable ergonomic steering wheel as well. And the general sort of feel and design is really very nice. I love how there's this continuous ambient light bar that goes all the way from one door card to the other via the dashboard with this nice curve and arc. And it makes it feel like you're really immersed in the car. And it also combines really well with good exterior proportions. I get a really good sense of where everything is on this car, partly helped by that funny elevated seating position. So yes, the design generally is very good. There is one criticism I have, and that is they've tried to stay very minimalist with the dash and the buttons in that dash, including, very good, there's a climate control button pack here, and then it has its own climate control screen as well. Love that, but it's a touch screen, and when you try and operate the touch screen, you rest your hand naturally on this bar underneath the screen, and then there's touch sensitive buttons here, and you end up pressing them accidentally. And it doesn't sound like, I'm sure, it doesn't sound like a big thing, but trust me, when you do that 3 times when you're trying to put a navigation instruction in, and it does start to get very irritating. I'll show you more about that when we look at the screen specifically, but just wanted to flag that early on. I've got heaps of charging options. I've got 2 USB-C down here, and Kia and Hyundai's really clever feature where you can select whether you want it to be just power or data and power connection, for those of you who are very protective about your data. Probably right to be in this day and age. Wireless charging for one device down there. A cute little spot to put the key. There is a notable mention for the key in this key ring, which is decorated in this cool, like almost masonry material. You pop that down there to charge. I've got a couple of cup holders. I've got a fingerprint reader, so I can start the car just using my fingerprint. Not sure how you feel about, you know, bio protection and all that stuff. I think it's a clever idea. You might think it's a terrible one. You do have a fold down armrest in here, which is great. It's comfortable. It matches nicely with the door armrest for a comfortable position. But I feel like there's sort of a missed opportunity, because as Josh and I were talking about earlier, caravans, you're pulling around a lot of useless air behind a car. And I feel like there's a lot of useless air inside here as well. It seems to have a large volume, but there's no way of opening up and using what would be potentially a really useful storage space in there. So perhaps a wasted opportunity for some badly needed storage. And then underneath that armrest, there's an even more peculiar feature, which is this little, I don't know what it is. It's like a third small seat, like you get in a van or something, but it definitely isn't, because there's no seatbelt for it. So you definitely couldn't legally put anyone there. Perhaps you could scooch across when you're stopped up in a car park or something, but it doesn't look like a seat. And I read the brochure, and Kia says it is to bring all the occupants feeling like they're more together and closer in the cabin, which may well be the case, but you can't sit on it, so you can't physically get closer. It's more just an aesthetic trick to make it feel like the seats are all connected, which they aren't, and you can't really sit on it. And then underneath that, there's more space or potential like tray storage that you could use, but you can't get to it because of that seat. There is a little slot in there for losing your phone in, but other than that, I don't really know what it does. Yeah, so between that funny armrest and that little seat, just a more style over function perhaps. There's a couple other storage features, a reasonable sized glove box here, and then this cute little hook for hanging bags on, maximum 3 kilos. So not massive capacity. The door pockets are tiny, very skinny, and probably just enough space for the smallest of water bottles, but not the big gym style ones that everyone seems to be mad about these days. So a couple of missed opportunities for storage. I do want to just mention that 180 watt 12 volt power socket down here, which is really, really good. And some more good storage options underneath this sort of flying center console. There's a big tray underneath there as well. The materials are really top notch. I like how Kia has restrained itself when it comes to the color palette, but the materials are really like high standard everywhere. Even these nice soft touch sort of plastic materials, this lovely perforated material on the dash, soft touch everywhere. It really does feel as premium as this car is. Just want to finish with one tiny irksome design feature. I always put a lot of credit into any manufacturer that has a separate climate control screen. This one does. The Kia EV5 has separate climate panel, little buttons here, but then it also has its own separate screen here, which is great, but they've put it directly behind the left side of the steering wheel. So if I'm sitting in my normal driving position, I literally can't see anything of the climate control. So if when I'm doing my drive impressions on the road and I'm driving like this, it's because I want to see what's going on the climate panel. As is fairly typical for any new Kia, there's a big digital central touch screen complemented by a same-sized driver's instrument cluster. This one is a bit different though, because it's actually 3 screens. If you look at it in the right light, that's a touch screen, this is a touch screen, and then that little one in the middle, that's its own separate touch screen as well. And it does function as a touch screen. So the climate control, you can alter the position of the air coming out of the vents with a touch of the screen. You can turn the air conditioning off, recirculated air, and those basic functions, but you can also do it from here as well. So my complaint about not being able to see it entirely is not necessarily true all the time, but it just seems like a basic ergonomic mistake. That aside, the digital suite is really lovely. It looks sharp. The refresh rate's really good. It seems to have a nice fast processor in there, and it's laid out in a really sensible way. I think Kia has learnt a lot over the various generations of touchscreens we've had in their cars, and the sensitivity is really good. I love that we've got shortcut buttons down here to get to the places you need to quickly, and once you learn this system, it actually becomes really, really intuitive, and you can almost do it without actually looking at the screen at all, which is great. That's exactly what you want. But as I said before, there are a couple of ergonomic problems and functional problems when it comes to things like, if you're in the navigation and you want to put in an address, then you rest your hand down here naturally to touch the keyboard, and suddenly it jumps into one of the hot buttons and the shortcuts again. So it's very frustrating. It would be very easily solved if these weren't touch sensitive. If they were actual mechanical buttons you had to depress to get to work, it would solve the whole problem. But clearly someone didn't see that in development. The digital driver's instrument cluster is beautifully synchronized in terms of design. There's a couple of different things you can play around with in terms of the information that's shown. It's not a very customizable central screen, but I like that it's fairly minimalist. It changes when you change your driving mode with that cool big button on the steering wheel. They're all complemented by a really nice large full color head-up display, which works beautifully, but the only problem I have with it is Kia describes it as augmented head-up display, and as far as I can tell, it isn't. So remind me to revisit this when we're out on the road.
A 360-degree camera is standard, which has a sharp image and a cool feature which allows a virtual camera to be moved around the car. All versions of the EV5 have all the active and passive safety technology currently available from Kia, including Highway Driving Assistant 2 and 7 airbags, which includes a centre side airbag. As this is the GT line, it gets a blind spot view monitor digital display in the instrument cluster.
If you like the front row for comfort and convenience in the EV5, you're going to love the second row because it's almost every bit as good back here too. For a start, there's so much space. Toe room is really, really good, which then also benefits the under thigh support here. I've got really good elbow room either side. Headroom is pretty reasonable as well, but then the view out is excellent too. This seat is slightly elevated in relation to the front seat, so I can look out over the front seat and I can have a good forward view, but then also the view to the side is good because of a low shoulder height here, nice big glass openings, so that general sense of airiness is twofold. One, it is actually big in here, but also you've got lots of light coming in and a good view out. Now is a good time to mention that beautiful panoramic roof as well. That comes with the GT line as standard. But then there's loads of features as well to boost the whole comfort experience as well. Heated seats back here are standard. I've got my own little vents over here. It doesn't get its own climate control panel down here, but that's okay because I think there's enough going on. I do have my own individual USB-C charging here, and then a clever one concealed on the side of the seat over there. And then there's good adjustment for the seats as well. So you can see this one's slightly more upright. Well, if you want to go for the full first class experience, there's a handy little lever down here to move the entire seat. So it's really, really versatile and comfortable. I do have a center armrest, which is sturdy and in a good position. You get on this side only an aircraft style little folding table with a little slot to put your phone in to watch movies or whatever it is when you're on the go. And then down here, where some cars would have their own climate control panel, I have a little sliding drawer, which look, oh, it's got a white liner, which means it is indeed insulated, and with the touch of a button you can have it either cooled or heated for keeping those hot drinks hot or cool drinks cold. I absolutely love the interior back here. It feels so business class. It's spacious, it's been well thought out, there's a good use of space. It's absolutely the place to be in this Kia EV5. In the boot of the Kia EV5, there's actually quite a lot to talk about. First of all, electric tailgate opening, very nice, nothing particularly unusual there, but once you get in there, it's a very flexible boot space. First of all, it measures 513 litres in its volume, which is pretty reasonable for a midsize, about the same size as a Toyota RAV4 boot. And it's a nice flat and even shape, so you can fit lots of things in here regardless of the actual overall volume. But there's so much versatility. There's this clever lift up boot floor, which gives you kind of a two-tier offering, and then there's more space underneath that. But if you pop that back down again, there's another removable panel which exposes more storage towards the front of the boot area. And then you've got lots of cubbies either side. These little shelves up here, pretty handy stuff. Cubbies either side, two smaller cubbies here. And then there are these little bag hanging hooks, or whatever you want to call them, little tie down points that move everywhere. So if you want one down there, you tie it in, twist 90 degrees, and it's secure there. You've also got 250 volt power socket there for plugging in fridges and things with proper power, not 12 volt as most boots have got. And if you want more space still, you've got a 60-40 split folding rear seat, and that liberates more than 1,700 litres of space. So it's big, and it's versatile, and it's clever. One of the nicest little boots I've looked at in a long time.
Unfortunately, despite all the good features, there's no spare wheel of any kind, leaving the unreliable repair kit in the event of a puncture.
Ugh. A lot of small SUVs sacrifice some ride quality in an attempt to be sporty and dynamic, including electric ones, but this one strikes a pretty good balance of both. This being the range-topping Kia EV5, I'm expecting it to be able to do a good balance of driving dynamics and fun, and also comfort for all on board. After all, it is the one with the dual motor powertrain, lots of power, lots of torque, and plenty of traction as well. And the early signs are very good. Certainly, 0 to 100 in 6.3 seconds is nothing to be sniffed at, but because of all that torque, it feels quick everywhere. All speeds, as soon as you open the taps, it does not hang around. It's really good fun. There's also heaps of traction, and it hangs on really well in corners. There's so much resistance to lateral acceleration thanks to partly some good quality rubber on each corner, 20-inch wheels, wide tread pattern, and all-wheel drive. But so far I've been driving only on really lovely, smooth, almost flawless tarmac. So this car would go really, really well on a racetrack where it can really lean on all that traction and grip. It's got quite a stiffly sprung suspension system, and there's not really a lot to upset it. But where it doesn't work quite so well is as soon as you throw a typical Australian road at it. It is definitely very front biased with the power. In fact, if you hadn't told me this was all-wheel drive, I would have probably sworn it was, if not exclusively, front-wheel drive. But it is very, very front biased, and you can feel that through a lot of torque steer. It's really struggling to get the power down, and it starts to shuffle that front end left and right according to how much grip there is. And it will spin a front wheel way earlier than I thought it would. I thought it would sense the slip happening and it would send one of the rear wheels to help. But it seems to be way more front biased than I was expecting. And then also you get more problems when you chuck it into a corner and you encounter bumps and lumps mid-corner. That's when it really struggles to get the power down and can really upset that quite nice composure that I've been feeling before. It's not an unforgivably stiff ride, as is nicely demonstrated there. You could certainly live with that. It just feels sporty and dynamic. There's more good examples there. Yeah, so some repairs in the road, you can see the cars being sort of, the body control is not fantastic. It's a little bit choppy, but you could live with that. But what you can't really live with so easily is when you encounter bumps and it starts to really upset that suspension tune. For the rest of the time, it's actually got quite a nice, pleasant manner. The ride is really smooth. There's very little noise coming in from the outside thanks to double glazing up front, acoustic windscreen there. So it does a reasonable balance of both, but if you're looking for a car that is an outright driver's performance SUV, then this probably isn't the best on the market. Unfortunately, there's something else that I find even harder to live with, and you can probably predict what I'm going to say. It is, of course, our old favourite driver assistance systems, driver warning, lane departure system. Yes, unfortunately, Kia still hasn't got it quite right. As you can hear all the time, there is a driver warning for going over the speed limit by just 1 km/h. And you also have a really, really overly intrusive lane departure system. And you do also have a driver attention system that is totally overactive as well. But there's problems with all of them. You can turn it off, and thankfully someone has set this steering wheel shortcut button to take me to the place where I can turn off driver attention warning. I can also turn off the speed limit warning. But then there's the problem of the lane departure as well. I don't really understand how to get it to turn off. So there's this button here, which I'm sure is, so I press that once and the steering wheel symbol comes on, then it goes off, press it once again, and it'll go green, which I don't want, I just want it off. But then you press and hold, and then the little lane departure then comes on in orange, and then now, right, steering wheel's off, now lane departure is green. I didn't want that, so I press and hold again, and it goes orange. Then I press once, steering wheel back on, now steering wheel's off. Now, did I get it off? No, it's back on green. Ah! I literally have no idea how to turn off the steering assistance and the lane departure at the same time using the same button. I think there's some kind of enigma machine that you need to tap that button in the right order to get everything to turn off as you want it, but I have no idea how to do it. And of course, all the time I'm looking at this, I'm constantly being shouted at by the driver attention monitor because I'm not paying attention to the road, which is exactly right. I'm not. I'm spending way too much of my time trying to turn off these annoying driver assistance systems. In fact, they shouldn't call them driver assistance systems. They should call them driver distraction systems, because that's what this is doing most of the time. The performance is really, really excellent. You wouldn't need a car faster than this as a mid-size SUV. It has heaps, and it's quick any way you want it. The throttle response is fantastic. The only thing that really we have to talk about is the energy efficiency. Kia says that this thing will do 21 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers, and it is all over the place. And I really don't know what's going on, because when I drove out to location this morning, I managed to get it to do about 16, an average of 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, which is really, really good. But then yesterday, when we were driving it for photography, not particularly aggressively, it went to 23. So I'm not sure what is affecting it so wildly. So I suppose if you average out those numbers, it does arrive at about the claimed figure of Kia's 21. And either way, that's not great. Oh, and I promised you I was going to get back to you about that augmented reality head-up display. So I think the marketing department at Kia have just got a bit carried away with all their buzzwords, because I guess to an extent it is augmented in that it's presenting you an image over an image of something else, but it's not augmented reality. Augmented reality HUDs present an image over the real image you're looking at, and it interacts with that in some way. Like Škoda and Porsche have their system which will put arrows over the road junction coming up that you're supposed to turn down, so you know exactly which one it is, or it'll put a warning symbol over an actual car on the road ahead of you to say you're too close to that, back off. Whereas this is just presenting information that doesn't relate to anything directly on the outside of the car. So augmented, perhaps. Augmented reality, definitely not. Of course, if you don't need 0 to 100 in 6.3 seconds, there are 3 other variants in the EV5 range, which all have adequate performance and actually will do a little bit better on the efficiency stakes, because they're not trying to give you the utmost in performance, and in some of them they're 2-wheel drive. If you want the outright performance champ in the EV5 range, this is it, and it's got really, really respectable performance. And it deals with that power relatively well, but not as good as some others do in the segment. I feel that by trying to put too much through the front wheels, it's kind of getting a bit flummoxed and a bit falling over itself. This car, don't forget, is a direct rival now for the Tesla Model Y. And while this at best feels sporty and a little bit dynamic, at worst it's kind of a bit confused in what it's trying to do. The Tesla Model Y, however, feels at best neurotic and at worst completely unlivable.
I can see why Kia charged the EV5 with such an important role, to claim a bigger share of the EV market than any Kia before. But since this car launched, an even smaller Kia EV has arrived, the EV3, and that offers a lot of the EV5 appeal, but is the cheapest Kia EV to date. So is that now the most important EV for Kia?
Kia has got a lot right with the EV5. I love its exterior and interior design that manages to stand out without looking ridiculous. It's also practical and fun without sacrificing all driving comfort. And although this one's a bit pricey, I still think it manages to represent pretty good value for money. But as to why this car is so important to Kia, I think I understand after spending just a short time with it. This is the first Kia that can actually genuinely give the Tesla Model Y some sleepless nights.